Well, a couple of things as we're getting rolling here this morning. One, just to remind you, if you want to get caught up with what's going on, a sermon series, or you want to watch one again, or anything electronic about this church, you can go to marysvillenaz.org. There's all kinds of information on there. And you can also go to our Facebook page by clicking on the little thing on the right over there, and that's where you will find the stuff that's inside your folder, the stuff for connection groups. If you're doing a sermon-based connection group is up there, as well as out in the connection counter, and also the inserts for the sermon itself. To those of us who join us online, Facebook is probably the best place for you to catch up with this, and we just want to say thank you. We're glad for all of you that join us out there in cyberspace. We're glad that you're with us. One other thing here, we have kind of started this Twitter conversation with hashtag MarysvilleNaz. So if you have a Twitter account and you want to comment on the sermon, you can do that by just hitting Twitter and do hashtag MarysvilleNaz.com. And if there's a point that you think's really good, or if you want to say, his hair is really bad this week, you can do that too. Keep in mind, I will check it, so, watch out all of that. But we're having a lot of fun with that, and it's really great to kind of connect electronically. We just know that the world is changing, and we want to find other ways to enhance our connection with one another. Because I like you guys. Laughter. That's what I get. I say I like you guys, I get laughter. Okay, rushing on. We're in a sermon series we're calling Legacy, and it's all about living for something more than yourself. And I really want you to get a hold of that idea, because at the heart of what we're about is this idea that we live our lives for more than just us, more than our stuff, our place, our thing. And legacy is this thing about being intentional about living for more than ourselves. And we kind of gave you a definition of legacy. Legacy is what matters after you are gone. When you no longer have control over it, when you can't influence it anymore. Legacy is what matters after you are gone. And for some of you who are younger, it's like, man, that's way far away. Why are we talking about this? We're talking about this because I know when you get close to the end and it starts to matter to you, you will wish you thought about it now. Okay, I've been by the bedside of too many people in the pastorate. I've seen enough over time that I know that what you do now is what makes that legacy matter in the future. And so we're kind of going to deal with this for a number of weeks now, probably close to Thanksgiving in there. Last week we talked about what story do you want your children to tell? That's a really important question. They will tell your story. It'll either be a good one or a bad one, but they'll tell your story. And so what story do you want your children to tell after you were gone? And we did a little writing with that. And I would encourage you to continue to work on that. I'd encourage you to write out your whole story, not just what you want going forward. One of the great gifts my mother gave me before the dementia kind of took her away was she took the time to sit down and write out her whole life story. It was like 40 pages, single space type, so it's a lot. But it's a great legacy for me to go back and read that. I learned all kinds of things about my mother when I was reading through that. So this morning we're going to talk about this idea of legacy, and I want to differentiate it a little bit from inheritance this morning. And a pastor that I really regard really well said something that has really stuck with me. He said, "Inheritance is something you leave for someone. Legacy is what you leave in them." Legacy is what you leave for something, the boat, the car, the bank accounts, the stuff. But legacy is what you leave in them. What molds them into the kind of person that they should be. And so it really leads to this conclusion. Your children are your greatest legacy. Your children are your greatest legacy. And maybe I should add, and your grandchildren. And your great-grandchildren. The ones you love that come after you, that's the part that really, really matters. Of all the things that will matter after you are gone, nothing will be more important than your family. That's why you wrote a will. That's why you do the inheritance piece. You take care of those things. You pay attention to those things. But when you get to the end of your life, what will matter is the relationship more than all of that. In fact, it's been my experience, and I've been a pastor for quite a while, so I've journeyed with people a lot, that at the end of life, no one ever says, I made my family too high a priority. I wish I'd spent more time at work. Anyone ever hear anybody say that? Just fact checking here. Yeah, I've never heard anybody say, I went to too many soccer games, should have gone to more meetings. Yeah, my life would have been better if I'd gone to more meetings. Anyone think that's true, Or, I did too many dates with my spouse. I should have been away from home more. That would have made life better. Nobody gets to the end of their life and says, I wish I'd spent more time at work. I'm not against work. Work hard. But a lot of people say at the end of their life, I wish I'd spent more time with my family. I wish I had invested in what matters most of all. And so this morning we want to talk about securing that legacy, that thing that will really matter. When you get to the end and you can evaluate it with a little clearer eyes, I'm telling you, your family is what will matter. I've been at the bed of a lot of people, and that's the important stuff in the end. At the end, you can, in fact, if you've given yourself to a good legacy, at the end you can pass with joy and happiness. I've been at the bedside of people that were alone. And I've been at the bedside of people who surrounded by generations of people that loved them, and it was holy party right into heaven. Because they'd given themselves over to a legacy that really mattered, that made a difference. And honestly, you gotta figure that out now because it's too late at the end. We talked last time, the choices you make now will determine the legacy you will have at the end of your life. And so for those of you who are younger, this is more important to you in many ways than to those of us that are a little bit older. Because you can set it. Some of you haven't even found the love of your life yet. Woohoo! You get to make good choices all the way through. Okay? Not about who you never mind. I'm going to get in trouble right there. And the greatest part of a really great legacy is that when you give it to your children, they pick it up and it becomes a part of their legacy. And they pass it to the next generation. And some of you receive great legacies from your parents. And you're passing it on to your children, and your children will take it and they will run with it, and then they will pass it on to your grandchildren. And you begin to see how God works in the midst of all of that, and the importance of faith that moves from one generation to the next generation to the next generation, that builds lives of significance and lives that matter and lives that are satisfying. Moses talks about this in the Bible in the book of Deuteronomy. Moses is one of the greatest figures, the greatest leaders that ever lived. He brought Israel from a place of being a scattered people that existed in slavery and turned them into a nation. And he led them through the desert, and he did powerful things for him. He's maybe the greatest leader they ever had. And so this morning we're going to look at some of the stuff he said in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9. And this great leader, Moses, is the one that gave to them the book of the law, which is what Deuteronomy is. Now you need to understand, when I say law, I don't mean law like you think about law. I mean law like Hebrews think about law. You all, being in America, you think about law as a punitive sort of thing. If you cross the law, you get in trouble, and the red lights come on behind you because you kind of went through that stop sign a little quicker than... You're all looking at me like you've never had the red lights come on. Am I the only one that's ever been stopped? Come on, don't lie to the preacher, And so law's a punitive thing. You get in trouble with it. But when law's talked about in the Bible, it's a good thing. It's a life-giving sort of thing. It's the instructions a father gives to his children to guide them and to direct them, that says, stay away from that. That's dangerous. But if you do this will be really good for you. And most of you, your parents gave you advice like the one I've shared here often. One of the things my dad just pounded into me, and I just thought, Dad, just leave me alone. But he said to me again and again and again, he said, you have to spend less money than you make. That has given me life. I am not a good investor. I'm not good at anything, but we are financially sound because we have been very careful to always spend less than came in. That's the law of Owen, my dad. Okay? So whenever you share that, you can say, here's the law of Owen, Well, that's what they mean when they say the law. It's life-giving to them. And so Moses is giving them life. In fact, in Deuteronomy, Moses has come to the end of the journey. The children of Israel have spent their time in the desert. They're at the river. They're ready to go across the river and take the promised land, milk and honey. Woohoo, everything's going to be wonderful. But God has revealed to Moses that he's not going in. It's the end of the journey, Moses. Your time is done. Your investment in your legacy is over. It's time to wrap it up. And then you're going to go up to the mountain and you will join me, and your descendants, your legacy, will go into the promised land. And it's in that context that Moses is writing the book of Deuteronomy. In fact, we believe that the book of Deuteronomy is a collection of his last sermons to all of Israel. Can you imagine how much you would be thinking about legacy in that moment? You're trying to secure it and wrap it up and get it done because you know very soon you're not going to be able to influence it anymore. And so in Deuteronomy chapter 6, Moses kind of wraps up this section of it. Verse 4, I'll just read it to you. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." There is one God. There's not a whole bunch of little gods. There's not a bunch of people that contend with him. There is one God, and he is King of kings, and he is Lord of lords, and you better not forget it. That's an important thing. Understand this is all about God. And then in verse 5, he does the wrap up to all of the law when he says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength." This is the summation of all the rest of the law. In fact, in the New Testament, Jesus picks this up. How many of you thought this was from the New Testament? It's actually from the Old Testament. And he adds to it, and you can't take this away. He says, "And love your neighbor as yourself," because the only way you can love God is if you love the people around you. You can't really give God a Christmas present, okay, but you can love people around you. And then he goes on in Matthew to say, all of the law and the prophets hang on this. The whole thing comes down to loving God and loving people. So this is the summation, this idea that from the very beginning and going forward, it's all about love. He wants to say to Israel, leave a legacy. I want to leave a legacy of love, of loving like Christ did. And then verse 6, he says, "These commandments, this legacy of love, I give you today are to be on your hearts." Now, if you speak more than one language, you know that sometimes words simply don't translate into another language. There's no equivalent because it's more complex than that. And this is a situation like this. The word in Hebrew that's translated hearts here really is much bigger than anything we imagine. We talk about hearts, we think about warm things, we think about good things, and it certainly includes this. But the idea of heart here is the idea of your whole being, of your soul and your mind and your thinking and your consciousness and your conscious and your emotions and your passion, and it carries the idea of courageously, and it carries the idea kind of this is to be in you in such a way that it kind of seeps out of you, that it forms your spiritual DNA and your emotional DNA and your relational DNA. This is to become who you are to become. Follow the law of God. It's all about this transformation in life. And it carries kind of the idea of moving past legalism. And you'll see Israel gets caught up over and over and over again in legalism. You gotta do this, you gotta do this. Remember Jesus? He was always getting into with the religious leaders over legalism, you know. Now, none of you have ever been touched by legalism, have you? I have, yeah. If you grew up in the church, you've been. And from the very beginning, it was never meant to be like that. And then verse 7, and this is the verse that's really important, he says, "Impress them on your children." And the word impress there is another word that can't really get into English. The word literally means to sharpen a knife. To pierce something is contained in this idea. And so it's kind of like, whoa, pierce your children? That's what, you know. But it's an idiom, and you have to understand that when Moses was writing, that most people might only have a little bit of metal in their life, because metal was expensive and hard to get. And so the thing that they would have often that was metal was a knife. Because a knife was the single best utility tool you could have. It could do all kinds of things. You could use it to hunt. You could use it to protect yourself. You would use it in preparation of food. You could use it to butcher animals. You could use it to tie things and cut things and all of that. In fact, remember Abraham had a big knife. The knife is an important thing. And so the knife, that when it was really, really sharpened, it was important. Any of you ever tried to cut anything with a really dull knife? Yeah, don't that just bless your soul when it slips off and cuts your finger, you know? And I once had a knife where the handle was loose, you know, and when you'd push down hard, it'd pinch your hand. Praise God, that feels so good, you know? And so the image here, when it talks about this impress or sharpen, is the image that you want to create in your children. You want to put this in your children in such a way that they become a sharp, effective instrument in the hand of the living God. That's the image. Impress. Put this into their lives. Do it over and over again. Get it into their hearts until it seeps out of them so that you are creating in them the instrument that God can use for His glory, the knife, the sharp thing. Mold their character and their core values. And you want those core values that you receive to get into them and into their children and into the grandchildren and the generation after that. Some of you are in the grandparent age and you're thinking, well, what influence do I have? Man, you have influence. You're so important to your children and to your grandchildren. Pass the love of God and the truth that God is one and God is loving into the next generation, into the family that follows you. In fact, love is often expressed in families. You have individual ways of that flow through your family. We're so individualistic in our terms. We think of each person as an individual thing, but God thinks in much bigger family terms than that, and Hebrews do too. It's why the religious leaders got so upset when Jesus said He was the Son of God, because they knew that meant you're God. And families have personalities. Mine's got a really strange one. But every family has a way of doing it. And you express God uniquely through your family. In my family, it was a lot of medicine. There's a lot of people that are in medicine. And the way they expressed God was going into medical professions. I went into the ministry. I'm the black sheep in my family, man. You know? Yeah, and some of you have traditions of teaching, and that's kind of your family. My daughter has gone into ministry. Maybe God's starting a new tradition and a new legacy in my family, but every family that happens. And so you're to mold the character. No one can teach your children how to experience and express God's love better than you. For you understand them in ways that nobody else does. Have you ever looked at your kids and thought, oh, there's my weakness right there? You know? And your strengths. You understand how that works. Each family is uniquely equipped to express God's love, and your children are your greatest legacy. So listen to me now. If we say our children are our greatest legacy, I want to propose something to you. And I know this doesn't work in our individualistic society, but in a society that sees families rather than individuals, it makes a whole ton of sense. What if your greatest contribution in life may not be something you do, but someone you raise? Think about that. Some of you don't even have kids yet. What if your purpose? What if the thing that God is saying, the thing I really want to do in them is I want them to raise this kid because this kid is going to change the world for Jesus. Or maybe it's your grandkids and you're raising the parent of somebody that's going to raise the kid that changes the world. Your greatest contribution in life may not be something you do, but someone you raise. Anybody know the name of Billy Graham's mother? Me neither. But wouldn't you like to meet that woman? Wouldn't you like? Maybe God has something special and you are molding and shaping and sharpening a tool that will be powerful in the hand of the living God. The generation and then the generation after that. You see, I believe with all my heart, and Scripture teaches, great legacies are created, not born. You're molding your children. You're helping them. It doesn't happen by accident. Great legacies don't happen by accident. Bad legacies happen by accident. But great legacies don't happen by accident. Great legacies require time, energy, effort, intentionality, planning, patience, discipline. And kids are expensive. Have you noticed that? I just get the second one through college. They're really expensive. But they are your legacy. It's not going to just happen. You have to work at it. You create that. You are sharpening the blade. You're rubbing off the hard parts. You're honing it. You're testing it. You're repairing the handle. You're getting it all together for what God wants to use. You can't do it by yourself. You need the other people around you. You need the grandparents. In fact, grandparents are so important to raising children. I want to recognize them this morning. If you're a grandparent, would you stand up? Stand up. I know I'm going to embarrass you. I can't stand because I'm not a grandparent yet. I'm resenting that a little, but we're working on it. Let's give our grandparents a hand. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Have a seat. You are so important in the next generation. You know who else makes a huge contribution to the community of people that help you raise your kids? Teachers, Sunday school teachers. We don't recognize you guys enough. If you're a teacher or a Sunday school teacher or you're involved in training kids, would you stand up, please? Yes, I'm going to embarrass you. We want to recognize you too. Yeah, all of you. Excellent. Thank you very much. You see, you can't do it on your own. It takes a community. And in this next verse, it talks about this idea of when and how we teach children. Verse 7 says this, talk about them when you sit at home. Talk about them being the law of the Lord. When you sit at home and when you walk along the road, okay? So you only have to do this if you're at home or not, okay? When you lie down and when you get up. So only if you're going to bed or you're up. That's other than, Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on the gates. That's such an important thing. What he's saying in all of this is that you're to do this in the living of life together. It's in the everyday stuff of spending time together and loving one another and talking to one another. You teach values around what you are doing. You see, you do your values with your children. You set up your home in such a way that it speaks to Christ. Put it on the doorposts. Put it on the gate. Some of you already do this. In our house in Kansas City, where our kids did most of the growing up, they'd come through the front door when they got home from school, and there was kind of a short hall, and then there was another hall, and there was a wall right there. And Jody and I put up a plaque, and it said something I'll bet you a lot of you have in your home. It said, as for me and my house, as for the Laughlin family, we will serve the Lord. That was an important thing for us because we were living in a community where there was lots of brokenness and lots of pain and lots of people that were very far from God, but we wanted our kids, every time they came through the door frame of the house, they came through the gate and they walked in their hand. I don't know about what's been going on in your day, son. I don't know what happened to you today, daughter, but I want you to know, as for our house, we will serve the Lord. We will serve the Lord. If no one else does, we will. We're building it into their lives in the words that we say. But even that, it's not enough just in lives. You have to do your values with your children. Because you know what I know for sure about children? Kids do what you do, not what you say. Anyone want to say amen there? Kids do what you do, not what you say. My dad used to say, your actions speak so loud I can't hear what you're saying. Usually that was directed at me. I don't know why, but it was sometimes directed at me. This is a principle of life. It's built into our very environment. Any of you watch America's Funniest Home Videos? Well, yeah, some of you. Okay. That's a fun program. And every once in a while they have the baby thing on there. And the other day they had one that I just really got a kick out of. It was a video of the baby. And Dad was a bodybuilder, right? And if you've seen bodybuilders, they do this, kind of thing. And so they had this video of Dad would look at this kid that must have been 18 months or so, and he'd go, and then this 18-month-old would go, it was great. Kind of like, whoa, Kids do what you do, not what you say. If you talk to that kid and say, okay, I want you to flex and I want you to grunt while you do it, he'd look like, blah, 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 blah. But if you go, he'll go, Kids do what you do, not what you say. Now sometimes this confuses us because if your life has integrity and you say and do the same things, it looks like they're doing what you say, but actually they're doing what you do, not what you say. And that's what he's talking about, this. Wherever you go, live it out. When you walk and when you stay home and when you're going to bed at night and when you get up and when you go through the day, live out your faith to them. And in fact, this works in a negative sort of way as well. In my last community, again, there were a lot of people with a lot of addictive sorts of things. And over again, I would know people that would lecture their kids about the dangers of the addiction that was raging in their own life. And they would say, I don't know what wrong. I told them. Kids do what you do, not what you say, for good or evil. And just as a side note, man, if there's something in your life you need to clean up, if you won't do it for yourself, clean it up for your kids. Because they're watching. They're watching way more than they're listening. They're watching, and you're really not hiding it from them, even if you think they are. See, life is a race. It's a long race. In fact, Paul talked about having completed the race and being done with it. It's a common metaphor. One of the most popular things today in racing is this. That's a picture, a pictograph of original marathon runner. Any of you familiar with what a marathon is? Any of you familiar personally with a marathon? Any of you have run any marathons? We got any marathon? Yep, several of you have run marathons. Really cool story. I don't know if you know the story behind it. It's probably the most popular race today. People talk about it, but it's actually named after a city that in an event in 490 BC, so like way back. The Persians were coming after the Greeks, and the Greeks went down to this city called Marathon, and they had this big war between the Persians and the Greeks were way outnumbered, but they managed to defeat the Persians, and the Persians were ticked about this. So they got in their boats, and they headed towards Athens, where the Greeks came from, because they knew that the army was still at Marathon, right? And so they're going to go over there in the ships, get there fast, and sack the city. That'd be kind of their final stab, at the end of the whole thing. And so when the Greeks figured this out, they had a guy that was their best runner, and he had run actually a lot of miles the day before. He was really tired, but he's their fastest runner. And so they said, go fast, run for Athens, 26 point some odd miles away. Run as fast as you can, get there and tell them we won the battle. But the Spartans are coming, and they're going to sack the city, so you need to be ready. And you know the story. He took off out of there as fast as he could go. He ran. He finally got there. He told them, we won the battle, but prepare because they're coming. And they did, and they were okay. And the next day he fell over dead. That's the story of a marathon. So that's why I don't run marathons, because it'll kill me. Didn't see that coming, did you? There's another race that was actually way more important, and it was established before the marathon was. Anyone know what kind of race that is? That's a relay race. Yeah, it actually began a couple of hundred years. And it's actually the way they really did do most of the communication in the ancient world. And what would happen is that when a commander needed to send a message to a place far away, they would have a thing, and they would wrap up the thing. They would write on a piece of paper and wrap it up and put it in there. And then that person would head off running for the next city as fast as he could go. And when he got to the next city, there would be runners in that city, and he would give it to them, and he would say, this needs to go to that place, and they would take it, and they would start off running for the next city, and then the next one would get it, and he would take it, and they would go, and they would run from city to city to city, each one of them passing the message, passing the baton to the next generation. You know what the most famous relay race is? The Olympic torch. To this day, we begin the Olympics with a relay race, the torch. And in the ancient world, fire was considered sacred. It's one of the symbols for God, the cleansing fire of the Holy Spirit. And in the Olympics, they will take the fire from ancient Greece, and they will pass it to the next one, and to the next one, to the next one, and to the next one. My son actually got to be a part of it for a short period when he lived in Kansas City, just a little section of it. You pass it to the next generation and all of that. But somewhere along the line, if you're a follower of Jesus, someone gave you a legacy of love and grace and mercy. And they said, hold on to this and take the flame and pass it to the next generation. There are people coming after you, and if you have children, it is your children. If not them, it's others. God always allows you to move a legacy into a next place, but you hold in your hand a legacy that's been given to you. And if you're not a follower of Jesus, this stuff is really important. Please pass your core values to the next generation. But I want to tell you that God can give you a legacy of a loving God too. All you got to do is become a follower of Jesus. He wants to give you this love to your life. And legacy is something that's shared from one place to the next. In fact, I believe with all of my heart, God works multi-generationally. Has a legacy for your family, not just for you individually. And you're just a runner. You received it from someone else, and you will pass it on to the next generation. In fact, your legacy isn't just your legacy. Your legacy is your parents' legacy handed to you. And your legacy that you hand to your children. Your legacy is a family legacy. And it's the most important in the message in the history of the world. God is one, and God is love. That's the legacy. In fact, your most important task in life is to pass the torch to the next generation. It's more important than the awards you get. It's more important than fame. It's more important than money. Because what hangs in the balance are your children and your grandchildren. It's the one thing we can't get wrong. We can't mess it up. In 2008, the United States had the fastest Olympic relay team, both in the men's and the women's. We were stars. We were going to blow everybody away. We had the best people, the most talented people, the best trainers, the best equipment. In 2008, they went into that race cocky, ready to get the gold medal. The gun went off and they went, and just as they were getting to the next one, they began to pass it and you see, who wins the race isn't the one who runs the fastest. It's the one that gets the baton in the next generation. And a slower team won, not because they were better, but because they got the passing of the baton right. The legacy that went from one to the next. We cannot afford to drop the baton. We gotta get it right for the next generation. And so this morning we're gonna do an exercise in just a minute, and if our musicians can come, I want to give you some steps real quickly for your legacy. Number one, you got to do it on purpose. Good legacies don't happen by accident. Only bad legacies happen by accident. Number two, it will require time. The idea of quality time over quantity of time is a myth. You can't sharpen a knife with one pass. You have to keep working on it. Number three, it'll require sacrifice. That's part of the image of the knife. You know what they use to shed blood? The sharp knife. And so I'm going to invite you in just a minute to come and get a runner's baton. If you will accept the challenge to take serious passing the legacy into the next generation, I invite you to come and get one of these in just a minute when we play the music and when we sing a great song about legacy in children. Children where boys become kings and girls become queens. Inside your bulletin, you have a little piece of paper, and on there's a thing about legacy. There's a place to record your legacy. And just like those ancients, I want to challenge you to write down on that today and in the days ahead your legacy, what you want to leave for your children, what's really, really important. Just like you prepare a will to leave your resources, and that's not nearly as important as this. Prepare what you want to think. And you can roll it up really, really tight and you can stick it in there. You might need a pencil to wrap around it. And then I want you over the years to hold on to this. In fact, I want you to write on the side of this these words. I will leave a legacy of love for my children and for my grandchildren. And whenever you think of something new that needs to be in that legacy, you can pull that out and write it down and put it in. And then I want you to put this someplace where you can see it, where you'll trip over it, where it's an important thing. Maybe it's your desk. Moms, when dad's spending too much time at the office, you can put it on his pillow at night. Just a reminder. But I want you to remember the most important thing in your whole entire life is to get into the next generation. You know, in relay races, who has the responsibility? It's the one passing the baton. The person running puts their hands back and runs. The one that's passing the baton has the responsibility to get it into their hand. Because if they don't, then a legacy is lost. We're going to sing in just a minute. Moms, dads, not married, maybe you're not that place yet, you don't have kids. If you want God's legacy and you're serious about passing it into the next generation, I invite you to come and get a baton as we sing. Let's sing.